Okay, this video is designed to show you how to correct an Illustrator file if the Illustrator file is not sized correctly when you go to customize a growth chart with a child's name. So I am inside Michael's folder, AI files in process, because all these should have been unchanged. Should have been the files before we changed them to the 9.7 by 42. As you guys all know, the corrected files are all supposed to live in AI files for print. But I'll go back to Michael's original folder. We'll scroll down to one of these and I'll double click on it. And sometimes you can see some of the designers used a certain font that they did not include in the package, or I just haven't installed it yet. I tend to like to just go ahead and hit done and go right through this and then skip the font warning and just open the document anyway. So you can see here's the document. I'll toggle my little grid off here. And if I want to see the size of it, I just go Document Setup and then Edit Artboards, and you can see it's 8.5 by 45. So, and then over here, you can see there's all of our layers that you would expect to see. So the first thing that I do, everyone has different ways of doing this. The first thing that I do is go Document Setup, Edit Artboards, and I go ahead and just change my artboard right now to 9.7, change that to 42. So now you can see it's a little shorter and a little wider, and so some of this stuff is sort of run off. But again, here's kind of how I do it. Kind of like to zoom in a little bit. So I tend to like to just sort of, just go through each of these elements and try resizing all of them if I can. The goal is not to get things perfect. The goal is just to keep the basic artistic effect. And this is a pretty complicated one, so this one actually may be pretty hard. Anyway, so I'll select, just toggling right there, the background layer, and you can see it's not 9.7 by 42. So I try to do this quick and dirty, just 9.7, change this to perfect 42, and you can see that change the size. And then I like to go bring up my Align palette, which you can always access through here, Window Align. And while I still have the background selected, I will ensure that I have this little option toggled Align to Artboard, and then I'll toggle the background to the left and snap it to the top, and you can see it just snapped to the top. So that's kind of what I like to do. And as I'm going, I'll go ahead and just save here as I'm going. Then the next thing I like to do is work on the inset border. That's here. And again, when Alex and I first started making these, we were putting some very exacting, like 5-digit decimal numbers in here, and I found that sort of, when you're dealing with all those numbers, it was sort of prone to error. So I got to a workflow where I just like to go, again, 9.7 by 42. Well, first, I do like to add a stroke of the same color, so I need to know the color of the fill. So I just copy the color fill, and then I come over here and paste the color fill there in the stroke. So now I have a fill and a stroke, which we didn't have before. And now that I have my stroke forward, I'll come up here to stroke, and I like to set this to 3 points. That's how Alex and I have been doing it all along. So we have a fill and a stroke for that inset border. And now, double check that, toggle that on to select the whole thing. It's 9.7 by 42, sure enough it is. And again, my Align palette, snap to the left, snap to the top. So you've got nice even numbers, everything's snapping properly. A lot of times, I think it's easy for people to forget to add the stroke and then increase the stroke to 3 points. But if you zoom in, you should consistently see the artboard here, and usually a little bit of the inset border bleed kind of going off the edge, which is kind of what you want. So that's all done. Now the next thing we want to do is just start moving elements of the artboard around. So I do remember doing this file, and this was a complicated file, and it's already been corrected. But the first thing you notice when we made the document wider is the little ruler numbers are no longer to the right edge. I don't think the rulers always need to be the right edge, but I think it's probably fine to go ahead and do that. So again, when you click something like one of these buttons, it selects everything inside that layer. So I like to go ahead and do that and move it all the way over to where it's just tucked up underneath the inset border. So I'll kind of zoom in here a little bit, and you can see, sure enough, it's tucked up in. And if you want to click right here, you can see just how far. If you want it further to the edge, when you zoom in, so I should be, because I've got this little eyelet selected, I'm moving all the little lines. So there we go, call that good, and then zoom back out and have a look. And now your little numbers you can see are kind of a long ways away. So I can select the large numbers and the small numbers and just start kind of moving them a little bit. Now, one thing that's worth mentioning, sometimes when you're moving your left and right arrows on your keyboard to sort of nudge things, you can see mine is barely nudging it. That's because sometimes I like to have very fine increments so that when I'm zoomed in on something, like for example these ruler lines, I could move it very small increments. See that? So I like to do that, and the way you do that, you set up that is you just go Illustrator Preferences General, and there you can set your keyboard increments to something really big or really small. I like to keep it really fine myself so that I can just use my just move things with the mouse when you want like when you want to move them big chunks, and then when you want to zoom in, you can see you can use your left and right arrows like that. So that's kind of how I like to do it. Then the hard part is evaluating all the artwork. So the artwork in this case you can see is really complicated. And a lot of times you can't just toggle the whole artboard and just kind of zoom it up or pull it out like that. Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. So I'm going to try it, just see what it looks like. I just basically like grab the whole thing and pull these little handles out off the edge of the document a little bit. And that gives you like a way to cheat and just get it done really fast. I suppose that's probably fine, but you'll still notice a little anomaly since you made it wider. Like for example, here this little element is not quite tracing off the edge of the document. So I'll toggle my little direct selection key here. The keyboard shortcut is A. In some cases, I'll just grab the little point there and pull it off the document. Sometimes you got to zoom in to make sure you got the right thing. So direct selection tool or keyboard shortcut A, just grab it, and you can see you can just kind of like move it off. So you have to go around and correct a few things. The most obvious one that I see that's kind of broken is these little lines no longer go off to the edge of the document. You can see that here. And so you kind of want to, if I toggle just with this tool, you can see that it's selecting everything in the artboard. So this whole artboard's been grouped, and that's not what you want. You just want those little lines. So in this particular case, you'll have to use the direct selection tool and select inside the line. You see that, and then hold your shift key down so that you can just group as you're going down these lines. When you hold the shift key down, it selects them all together, and then you should be able to get right on the edge of the line here with your mouse and drag everything out that way. So, and then if we scroll to the other side, whoops, if we scroll to the other side, we should again just hold your direct selection arrow right over the line there, and it's just pulling that side of things. It's kind of smart that way. And you can see if I scroll back over here to this side that, oh, it's not working that way. Okay, so let's toggle this one then. Okay, so that grabs them all. Okay, so that should do it. And we'll scroll back and just double check. Yeah, so there we go. So that should be, we'll zoom out to have a look. That should be just about right. Now those little lines are going off to the edge. And then lastly, we've got this little issue with the girl's name here. So it's showing AK Posse font, but you can see it's broken. But because we move the canvas size around, we got to move this thing around like this. I think that font's fine. I don't really know what it's using there, but if you're too bothered by it, it's still letting me type and edit in here. I don't know what the original font is supposed to look like exactly, but I don't think it really matters. I think as long as it doesn't look absolutely horrible. So I think we could just sort of leave it like that. And now we're done. So we go File, Save, and then of course you put this file in. I'm not going to save it into the top of AI Files for Print because this one's already been done, but if it hadn't been done, you'd also put it over here in AI Files for Print and save it, and make sure you save it as a CS5 or lower file, not a CS6, because not everybody in our workflow has CS6. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully that helps. Bye.